Hi, welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today we continue with part 5 of our periodic look at Beach Boy album covers and the information that we can glean from them. We're now up to the early 70s, which to my mind is the golden era of Beach Boy album covers. These are the covers that really intrigued me when I began to figure out that there was more to the Beach Boys than just a bunch of hit singles in the 60s, that their recorded legacy was much more complicated and much more interesting than I originally understood. Before we get to that, I'd like to back up just for a moment to talk about 2020, the last Beach Boy album of the 60s and their last for Capitol Records. Now, we discussed this last time, but I realized afterwards that there's a very important point about this album cover that I missed. There's no track listing on this thing. It's really mysterious and kind of inexplicable that they didn't bother to list the songs anywhere on the outer sleeve. In 1980, when I first began to purchase the Beach Boys' back catalog, their 4 late 60s albums were all out of print and were only available as twofers on the Warner Reprise label. You got Smiley Smile and Friends on one set and Wild Honey and 2020 on another set. The covers had nothing to do with the original release. They contained none of the original artwork. And actually, those albums had gone out of print and were available in cutout bins in 1980. So when I first found an original issue of 2020, it never occurred to me that the buyer in 1969 would have had no idea what songs were included on the record. So this takes us into the 70s and the August 1970 release of Sunflower, marking a big improvement in Beach Boy album cover art. You can see up here in the corner, you've got the Brother Record and Warner Reprise logos, their new record company. This front cover photo is by Ricky Martin, longtime associate of the band, son of Dean Martin and brother of Dino Martin, of Desi, Dino, and Billy. He was still in high school at the time he took this picture, which was done on the golf course of the Martin family's Hidden Valley Ranch in Thousand Oaks. Ricky, of course, later went on to record the album Beached in 1977, which was co-produced by Carl Wilson and Billy Hinchy. The album cover certainly acknowledges the Beach Boys as maturing individuals. Most of them are pictured with their children there. Weirdly, Mike Love is trying to juggle 2 kids and a wine glass. And also I noticed there's something down here in the corner. I think it's a toy piano, but it might be some kind of a guitar case or something. Weirdly to me, it always seems like Bruce is posing for a different album cover. He's standing there stock straight, while the rest of them are casual and posing with their children. Of course, he's also not a Wilson family member. Maybe this was a bit awkward for him. Weirdly, I haven't seen a lot of outtakes from this photo session. The only alternate photo that I've come across is the picture sleeve for a 45 release of Tears in the Morning, which I believe was released in Europe. Carl was apparently instrumental in the choice of title and logo on the album, having brought a box of old Orange Crate labels into the studio, and the group went through it and selected a label for Redland Sunflower Oranges to be the basis of the logo. In a very humble early 70s hippie type way, they call this an album offering from the Beach Boys and list the songs as ingredients. Of course, the band, like a lot of the country, was heavily into health food at the time. Brian was operating the Radiant Radish health food store in West Hollywood. Of course, Mike Love, very into healthy foods, transcendental meditation, etc., etc. So this played into the zeitgeist of the times, as well as the Beach Boys' own interests. The liner notes are rather interesting as they go into great detail about the technical aspects of recording the album. Among other things, they go into such detail as listing microphones include Neumann U67, U87, KM85, RCA DX77, DX44, EV66, and RE15. I suspect some of this may have been included for promotional consideration. However, in 1970, we were at a time where people were beginning to move away from those big, huge stereo consoles that took up one end of their living room into having audiophile components and trying to get the ultimate sound system. So this may have appealed to the audiophiles in the audience. I looked at other Warner Reprise albums from the time to see if there were other albums that listed this kind of technical detail on the recording specs. Couldn't find any, so this is kind of unique to the Beach Boys. Below the technical information, we have a few lines from Mo Ostin, the head of Warner Reprise. In his notes, Mo says, "During the past decade, few musical groups have had as great an influence on the world of music as the Beach Boys. The group set many major musical trends of the 60s, and their music brought joy to millions around the world. We are delighted that the Beach Boys have chosen Reprise Records to distribute their Brother Records label. I am happy to welcome Brian, Carl, Dennis, Mike, Alan, and Bruce, and I am pleased to be involved in the future they are creating." Mo Ostin, President, Warner Brothers Records. By all accounts, Mo was an enthusiastic booster of the Beach Boys and was very pleased to have them signed to the label. As a part of their welcome to the new label, the Beach Boys were given a gatefold sleeve and allowed to use the Warner Brothers film studios and some of the costumes there to shoot the photos that appear inside. All these photos were done on Warner Brothers backlot with the exception of the photo of Mike Love. Whatever else you say about Mike, he could usually be counted on to show up, but apparently for this particular photo session, he did not turn up. Fred Vale says that Mike Love was not feeling well at the time. However, Ed Thrasher, the Warner Brothers art director and the one who took the photographs, said he thinks there may have been some tension within the band and that Mike deliberately decided not to turn up. I've always wondered if the original intention was to have a group photo in costume rather than these individual photos, but that Mike, who had to be photographed separately, prevented that by not turning up to the photo session. Of course, you get the individual band members all in costume, and then here at the top you get a shot of Brian's Bellagio house where some of the album was recorded. These pictures were apparently very popular with the band. Dennis reused his photo on the European sleeve of his first solo single, Sound of Free and Lady, at the end of 1970. And even 7 years later, Bruce reused the photo as the front cover of his Going Public album in 1977. Of course, we know Sunflower didn't chart very highly and did not sell well. The next year, 1971, brought a change of direction and new management in the form of Jack Riley, who attempted to make the Beach Boys hip again. One day short of a year from the release of Sunflower, we got the next Beach Boy album, Surf's Up. The change in direction is clear. Gone are the bright colors, the optimistic tones. We have a very somber and dark album cover that clearly makes reference to the Brother logo. This painting was apparently found by Jack Riley in an antique shop. It's based on a statue by James Earl Frazier, an artist from the Dakota Territory, called The End of the Trail. It was modeled in 1894, and a plaster version of the sculpture was displayed in 1915 at the Pan Pacific International Exhibition in San Francisco. There's a bronze version of the statue in Waupun, Wisconsin. The Brother Records logo, which had been in use since 1966, was also based on a bronze sculpture, Cyrus E. Dallon's 1908 Appeal to the Great Spirit. A bronze statue of Appeal to the Great Spirit stands outside the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. Both Frazier and Dallon were part of a group of American artists who specialized in Western subjects and studied in Paris around the turn of the century. There's an insert to the album, again kind of somber and ironic, showing this dried plain on an album called Surf's Up. And on the other side, you get, for the first time in a Beach Boys album, the lyrics reproduced and a series of photos of the band there at the bottom. I think it was highly important in 1971 that the Beach Boys have an album cover that made it clear that the title Surf's Up was ironic. Now, some Beach Boy aficionados at the time may have known that Surf's Up was this artistic, complex, thoughtful piece of work, but to the general public, Surf's Up would have meant nothing more than Surf's Up. You can imagine how eyes would have rolled had they put the title Surf's Up on an album cover like this. So I think it was a good choice to go with something that was somber and dour and offset any wrong messages that the title Surf's Up might have sent to the general public. The back cover of the album, with its blue-green color and its water-damaged look, continue the theme of the album. And once again, in the insert, in the notes, you get very serious technical notes on the recording of the album. The original recording was done on Brother Records cassette tape recorder at 30 IPS with 2-inch wide tape with 4 long-lasting flashlight batteries. The following microphones with built-in remote switch were used: U2 boat mic, F111 throat module, and DC456-1414. A 30-position toy mixing console was used to transfer the original recording to my brother's 2-track recorder. Once again, every effort is being made to make sure that the Surf's Up album is taken seriously. And this actually is my favorite Beach Boy album cover. It was one that really intrigued me when I began to get interested in the Beach Boys in 1980. And I think it was designed that way. It was meant to confound your expectations of a Beach Boy album cover, presenting you with something you didn't expect from them. And I think in 1971, it probably had the same effect that it had on me in 1980. It really intrigued me to see what was inside this album because the cover was so unlike what I expected from the Beach Boys. I had hoped to talk about Carl and the Passions and Holland also in this episode, but I can see there's just too much to say about these album covers, and we're going to be here all afternoon if I go into that. So I'm going to make that a separate episode. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please let me know if I've missed anything. Love to hear your comments. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.